Hello and welcome to part 2 of alternative medicines and perhaps opinions on the good, bad, and the otherwise. We're joined by Willison, who is an acupuncturist, and Lisa Kilgour, who is a registered holistic nutritionist. And we left part 1, we were going to talk about hand sanitizers. And actually, there is a child in my life, not my own child, but her mom sanitized everything when this child was a baby. And I have never met a more sickly child in my life. Do you think the two go hand in hand? I know it's really hard to say. You can't say for sure, but
generally, people who are germophobic have other habits that lead to that. You know, they say, allergists will say the best thing to do is buy a dog and let him play with the kid, and that will completely demolish hand sanitizing. But it's an interesting thing, hand sanitizing. One thing I like to point out to people, how do you sanitize something? You have to kill it. If you talk to microbiologists, it's very difficult to kill germs on your hand. They're very built to withstand that because they're on there. So you need to use some pretty toxic chemical. So when we see hand sanitizer at every mall and everybody's house, and little babies can put it on, it can't be that difficult. It can't be that tough. It can't be that tough a poison. So generally, I look at the ingredients, and you look at the ingredients, and it's primarily alcohol and fragrance and gel. That's not sanitizing anything. That's going to clean off your hand, but it's not going to sanitize anything. And I remember in acupuncture, we have to take a 2.5-day course on how to put needles in cleanly. And part of that is sterilization and cleanliness and all this stuff. And it's always interesting. There's always a biologist in the class. When they start talking about hand sanitizer, biologists always will stand up and say, that stuff's a bunch of hooey. There are different brands, and there's certainly different types out nowadays that will sanitize it. But once you kill the ecology on your hand, generally what will recolonize quicker is bad things. So once you start going down that slope, you are on that slope forever. And you'll eventually demolish the ecology of your hands. Your hands will start to do weird things. You'll start to absorb these toxins. And for thousands of years, we did okay with this. Now it's true, things like Black Plague and these sort of SARS, H1N1, why didn't they take off and do horrible things? I have a few theories, but one of the biggest ones is we wash our hands. Me and I treated biologists, I've treated doctors, I've treated all these people, and I say, is this hand washing a big deal? Hand washing with old school soap is a big, big, big deal. Hand sanitizers and stuff, they don't have the mustard to do what we need for those germs.
Same kind of opinion for me, Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. Soap is what we need, and hand sanitizers at best only kill off bacteria, and usually the bad ones survive. And it doesn't kill off viruses, and that's most colds are viruses. They're not bacteria in the first place, so it's not really helping. But you feel clean. So instead of going to wash your hand, which could also get rid of some of the viruses, you now have partially sanitized hands. And we need bacteria. We need this colony on us. It's been a part of our immune system for the lives of human beings, and we're not respecting it by killing off willy-nilly the bacteria on our skin as well as the bacteria in our gut. And there is many studies that have shown overly clean houses create allergic children, and that dogs are one of the best animals, are one of the best ways. So we need to educate our immune system, and one of the ways we do that is by eating some of the viruses and bacteria that are on our hands, and then they go through the digestive system and educate our immune system if our digestive system's strong. So it's an unnecessary part of life that can cause problems, but I also think that it's not going to cause a world of problems. It's just not going to solve that world of problems.
The thing I worry about it is I think it provides people a false sense of security.
Which is what I was going to ask.
And on the other side, though, if you're flying to a foreign culture with a radically different atmosphere like India or China or South America, you might want to take it with you. You know, there's times for it, for sure.
Do you think that that hand sanitizers help create this very fearful society, perhaps?
We
like
are
we're afraid
out
of germs.
Yep.
It is that.
Desperately afraid.
Yeah, like if you actually look at the hard numbers, we are the safest, the less everything, the longest living, blah, 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 blah. And yet many people are freaked out of their socks every day. But scared people buy a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Now, the other question I want to ask you both is, I imagine a lot of both of your practices involves looking at people and kind of diagnosing? Is that the right word?
Prognosing.
Prognosing. Do people ever, in air quotes, poo-poo that?
You know, my teacher my teacher's this lovely older woman who's been doing this for a very long time, and she learned in Japan. Her teacher would not allow her to speak with the patients. If they open their mouth, they're lying. So she was only allowed to do palpatory diagnosis and physiognomy, which is visual diagnostics. So when new patients would come to the clinic, for the many years I've been with her, we would see, what do we think they come for? Oh man, I don't care what people think. You put them in front of my teacher, she's going to tell you what you got. It is amazing. But it's a skill. You know, it's no different than, look at Texas Hold'em. The biggest thing now is tells. You know, it's all there. Every line, every wrinkle, every thing you do, the tonation of your voice, the bends, the this, the that, it's all there for people that know what to look for. The FBI uses it all the time. There's TV shows, you know, The Mentalist is one of these people. It used to be called Lie to Me is a big one. All these people are used all over. Now, Western doctors, most of them like blood tests. Me too, I like blood tests. They tell us stuff. But when you have a sick person and all their tests come back, they all come back good. I've had patients have $1 million in biomedical tests and they're perfect. And you look at them, you think, well, I wonder what that crease here is. It'd be congestion, right? So you just clean them out and they're better. Luck, anecdotal, hey, that person's better, that's a good thing.
And isn't that kind of the best place to be, no matter kind of where you're getting your help, is just that you've been helped? But the Eastern or less traditional type of medicines just seem to always take a back seat.
In the West.
In the West, yeah.
I wonder why.
They're cheap. They're cheap. They're cheap. It's tough to study. There's no nutritionist going to do a placebo. How are you going to give a guy a bad carrot?
And nutritional studies are so problematic, and they don't. Yes, I can pull some nutritional studies out of my pocket and show you. The fact is that because we're all so different, and my diet is very different than yours and yours, it's impossible to do a group study and say that this number of servings of vegetables is exactly what human beings want. Well, maybe that group of human beings at that time of the year. What about 6 months later when the weather's very different? And what about a different group? And so because it's not, there's never 1 + 1 = 2, it's really, really hard to study it in the ways that we generally see science. I always like to say, when it comes to gut health, it's 1 + 347 = 10,602, unless this is happening, and then it equals 5. And because you never know. I can see exactly the same symptoms, and it come out to be something completely different. Because that person sitting in front of me may have this list of symptoms, but what was the 10 years before, the 20 years before? That all matters. That's playing a part in the healing process, and how they heal is very different. And so I find it fascinating, and I love what I do because it's such an incredible puzzle. But because it's an incredible puzzle, you can never do those kind of studies on it.
Now, after the break, I want to talk about one of my addictions and what you guys think of sugar. So stay with us. We'll be right back.